Okay, good morning everybody, it's Mr. Sutton. This is the first of the new series that I was talking about in the weekly announcements. So here's what I want to do. I want to start with the basics, go back to the beginning with Scratch and go over some of the things that I think a lot of people missed. And we're going to get started with the very first lesson right now. Those of you who choose to do this one as your lesson for this week, that'll count the same as if you choose to do the other lesson. Alright, so let's get started. Okay, let's start here. So what we have showing right now is the home screen for Scratch. When you go to the home screen, you have several options. You can use these upper buttons in the menu up here to start creating right away. Make sure that you're signed in because you can't save your work or share your work unless you sign in. Alright, so make sure that you're signed in. If you're not already signed in when you come to Scratch, what you need to do is you need to not click the join button, you need to click the sign in button and put in the credentials that I gave you. And if anybody's having trouble with that or needs their credentials, please reach out to me and I'll get them to you. Alright, other things I could see here is I have a button for my classes. I'm a teacher, so I can have educator resources and a teacher account fax. You would have something different up here. I could see that one of my scholars shared a project, so I get it right on my home screen here. Here's another. Here another scholar favorited something and loved something, so I can see what you're doing, a snapshot of what you're doing over the last couple of days. Not been a lot of activity this week on here, so this is yesterday, this is 2 days ago, these three, and this is 3 days ago, so you can see that I get a snapshot of what you're doing right away. So what you want to do is, let's continue here. You have these two buttons over here. This is if you have any inbox mail on your account. This is where sometimes I get notifications of somebody from Scratch if somebody is doing something incorrectly on Scratch, meaning they're violating the rules. Here is your stuff, and your stuff is all the projects that you've worked on. This is what I've worked on since I've started doing Scratch in the summertime. Was the first time I had any access to Scratch at all. So you can see every project that I do is saved in here. Some of them are untitled, but you can see most of mine now have titles, so I can understand and know what they are when I get back in there and want to work on them. So that's my stuff. You should have something for your studios that you can get to. Your page looks a little different than mine, I understand that. But you should be able to get to your studios from this page and so forth. Now when you click on a project, so this one says Draw Rectangle Sutton. If I click on that, that brings you to the project page. Here's the project page. This has not been shared, so nobody can see it. I have this orange bar across the top, tells me it's not been shared yet. So if I want other people to be able to see it, I have to click that button to share it. I have no instructions written here. I could. If I had copyrighted materials that I was using and I wanted to give credit for who created that originally, this is where you would do that over there. Alright, now once I click the share button, I get these two additional buttons, add to a studio or copy link. So this is where you are able to put it in a studio. So when I click add to a studio, I get a listing of all my studios, and I can just click one of the plus signs to put it in that studio. If I wanted to attach it to the assignment in Google Classroom or to email it to me, you could click copy link and then click copy link here. And now it says copied. So this link has been copied, now it can be shared to me and I can see it. But you don't get those options until you click that share button. So make sure that you share your work. Some of you have told me you've done projects in the past, but I have no way to see them unless you've clicked that share button. Alright? So if you can see your project page and it looks like this and it has the green at the top, it says the project is shared, then I should be able to find it even if you didn't put it where it's supposed to be. But the best way is put it in the correct studio, give it a name I can recognize like that, and also copy the link and either email it to me or you can attach it to an assignment in Google Classroom. Alright, so now let's click on Create here because this is where we want to do our projects. And we have several sections here. This is called the stage up here. The stage is where your backgrounds go. It's where your characters have action. It's where all the actions happen. You can't really adjust anything on the stage. You can drag and move the character around a little bit, or any of the props. But you can also change those things right here below the stage. You have this area that tells you this is called Sprite 1. I could change the name of that to Cat if I wanted to. So now it's called Cat instead. And right now it's at X, meaning from left to right, if I divide it in the center is 0, negative 31, so I moved it 31 spaces that way, or 31 pixels. And it's negative 25, meaning I moved it down, so I dragged it down in this direction. And each time I drag it down, you see those numbers get more negative. If I drag it in this direction, the X numbers start to get positive, but the Y numbers are still negative because I'm low. If I bring it up, now my Y is positive, my X is positive. And if I bring it back to the center, I'm going to get close to 0, 0. In fact, if I wanted to, I could just type 0, tab 0, and that'll put it exactly in the center. All right, now in these sections, so you got the stage, you have the sprite section, and you have the backdrop section over here. The backdrop section, if you click on here, you can choose a backdrop, you can create a backdrop. You get the same things you do on the sprites. Surprise, I guess that just brings in any backdrop, and you don't even know what it's going to be. Or you can upload a backdrop. If you have a picture that you take a picture of your backyard and you want these sprites playing in your backyard, go for it and upload it and put that in. For now, we'll choose a background. I'm just going to choose the blue sky there. And by the way, I can load multiple backdrops right here. It says there are 2 backdrops. What's the other backdrop? I only see one. Well, it's just the plain white. So if we went to click on the backdrop, we can go to backdrops here and we can see the 2 backdrops, the plain white and the blue sky. While we're in here, if we wanted to, we can paint or we can add things to the background. Let's say we wanted to put in a tree. We can use the paintbrush tool and change the colors and outlines and make a tree in there if we wanted to. Or let's just do something simple. Let's put a little kind of V-shaped bird off in the distance in the background. Things tend to get blue or purple as they're in the distance. I'm going to leave it more toward the purple side actually, because it'll show up better against the blue sky. And I'm just going to take the brush. Right now it's kind of thick. I want something thinner. I'm going to bring it down to about 3 and just maybe paint a bird in the backdrop. Whoop, I got to do it over here. So now I have a bird in my backdrop. So if you ever want to add things in your backdrop, you can do that. I could also do that with the line tool by dragging in the line tool, grab my reshape tool, click on it, make a point in the center, and drag it down. And then I can drag this up a little bit, make another point there, and drag that up a little bit. I always tend to like these kind of shapes a little better. 4 is a little thick for this, and I want to go to that purpley color. So the way I do that is I need to bring the brightness up, drag this slider over to the purples, and get the color that I'm looking for. So now I have that purpley bird. I could continue to work on that and adjust it. It's not quite pointy enough at the bottom. Probably need to do some things to make that work better. But you can see that as I adjust it here, it will change there as well till I get what I'm looking for. Maybe I wanted to add a little bit of a circle in there for the body of the bird. And if I want to, I can fill it with a similar color. So let's go back to the purples. Maybe bring it this way. And now we should have a filled circle for the body of the bird there. So that's added into my background. It's nothing I can move from here or anything, where if it's a sprite, it's on top. I can move it down to where I want to bring it. Notice when I click on here, it automatically took me out of backdrops and it brought me to the cat. It says costume 1 and costume 2 inside costumes. I can make my changes to any of these costumes in here, but I didn't want to do an awful lot with costumes today. I want to go back to code because that's really where we want to be. All right, so this is the main coding area. This is where all your code blocks are, and this is your workspace. This is where you're going to do all your work. And notice the code blocks are divided by color. You have blue ones, purple ones, pink ones, or yellow ones, orange below that, sort of an aqua color here, green, orange again, a different orange, so it's like a red orange for your variables. So they're divided by what their function are. This is for motion, so if you want to move your character, you probably want to pick one of these blue blocks. Looks, you want to change the look of your character, you want to pick one of those. Sounds, you want to add talk bubbles and things, or sometimes they have some built-in sounds in there. You can do that. Events, we'll talk about that, but that's basically what happens if I click the green flag, or what happens if I hit the space bar, things like that. Control, that's how you tell it, instead of having to code something 10 times, you can make it repeat 10 times, or if you want to add some wait time, you can make it wait. So that's how you use control. Sensing, we'll talk about sensing a little more as we go along, but basically there are certain things that if two colors come near each other, for example, then it should do this. Operations, that's where you have things like adding and subtracting. When things add up in certain ways, you want other things to happen. You can add operators there. You have variables. Variables are things like, if this condition is present, I want that to happen. Or if some other condition is available, then this other thing should happen. And then you have a section for my blocks where you can create codes. But for now, let's concentrate on motion. So we have the cat, we have our background, and let's say we want to make it move. Let's start with the simplest move block. So I'm just going to click it and drag it in there, and it says move 10 steps. Steps doesn't mean that the character's legs are going to move. Steps doesn't mean that it's going to be going like up or down stairs. It just means that it's going to go over. Right now it's at -112. It should go to -102 when I click on that. And so to activate this and see what happens, I can click on that, and you see it went to -102 in the X direction. The Y didn't change. It's not a very big movement. It's a very tiny movement. So if you want something more drastic, you have to click in here and change that number. So if instead I did 100 steps, then it should go to -2, which is right near the center when I click on it, which it did. All right, so that's how steps works. You can have it turn. Turn is not left and right turning. Turn is in degrees. So it's more like a rotate, and you can rotate back in the other direction as well. And if you look over here, it says direction 105. What you want to get to, if you want your characters upright, is direction 90. So it's at a 90-degree angle, and that'll bring it back to the normal position. So if you wanted a specific rotation, you can change it here and then use these to get there. Go to random position. That's just going to randomize where he goes. And notice that I don't have to have it dragged out here to test to see what it does. Go to X is -110, Y is -103. That's the spot that it's at now. So if I click that, nothing will happen. But if I let's say I drag that out here so it keeps those numbers, now it's going to move 100 steps and then go to that position. Now, why did we not see it move 100 steps? The answer to that is because it all happens so fast we don't see the first one. That's why we sometimes have to add controls. So let's go to control block. And let's add a little wait time in between those two. So now it says move 100 steps, wait, and then it's going to go to that position. So let's just move it out of the position starting up there, let's say. So click on the whole block, it moves 100 steps, waits a second, and then it's going to jump to that position. All right, so if we want to see each and every one of the moves we put in, we have to put some wait time. Now 1 second might be too long in certain circumstances, so you can adjust that to even smaller pieces. Let's see if we put it to 0.2 seconds. Will we still see everything? So let's move it out of position, click 100 steps, we still see everything. You see that? But it happens much more fast and much more fluidly. So 1 second might be a long wait time. You want to use that. Probably, if you're really trying to set up anticipation, you might want to add in a 1 second wait time or even higher. But really, most of the time, you're going to want that to be something smaller than 1 second. Just enough that you can see all the different movements. Let's put an event on there so that the viewer knows how to make it run, which is click the green flag. So what I want you to do is create a character moving. You choose the movements, choose at least 3 or 4 of these blocks. I didn't go through all of them. I want you to play with them and figure out which ones you want to use, but have it do 3 or 4 movements with wait time in between so that we can see the movement of the character. Don't worry about adding in any sounds or text bubbles or anything else at this point. I just want to see some really good solid movement. Give me an animation that lasts at least 30 seconds. All right, and then you'll get credit for this assignment. One other thing though, if you want a particular starting spot, which I think is always a good thing with this, because some of these things, if it ends up in the same spot that it was going to start in, you won't see anything happen. So what you can do is, let's say you always want your character starting over here. You can bring in that go to X and Y. Once I've dragged that over, it takes those numbers. Notice these go to X and Y, they have the numbers from before. So now no matter what happens, each time I click the flag, it's going to go to that spot first, and then it's going to do the other things. That was probably not a great spot to use because we're not seeing all the movements, because some of it's happening off the screen. So let's move the cat, instead of there, let's move the cat up here. So we get some Y movement going on as well. So now I'm going to drag that back in. People ask, how do you get it to start back in the same spot? That's the way you do it. Go to X equals and Y equals and put in the spot that you want it to start in. Make that the first thing. And also you probably want to add some wait time. I'm going to leave it at a second so that we can see very clearly that the cat is starting here and then it's going to start its movement. So let's get the cat off there. Click, starts there, and then it does its other movements. All right, so this is your first assignment. Again, I want to see at least 3 or 4 different blocks. So right now I have 2 different blocks. So I have the go to XY and the move 100 steps. I want to see at least 3 or 4 different blocks. And I want it to last, mine lasted only maybe 2 seconds. I want your animation to last 30 seconds. All right, so time it before you send it to me. All right, so when you're ready to turn it in, you can click the orange share button right here, or you can go back to the project page and share it from there. If I click the orange share button, that brings me back to the project page, and it says your project is now shared. Do not leave the title as untitled, whatever. Let's call this movement, and my name's Sutton. You would use your name, obviously. If you want to give me instructions on what to do, that would be something like click the green flag to start. And you don't really need to do this, but if you have any notes, you want to tell me about anything, you can put something in there and I'll be able to see those notes when I go to the project page as well. I don't have a studio for movement. I will add one so that you can put it in there so you can add it to a studio, but most importantly, try copying the link and send me the link. All right, copy link, and then go to an email. Let me go to my Gmail. So Sutton at emolier.net, subject, movement project, and then you can just paste in that link and click send. So now when I'm here, I can click on this and it will take me right to the project. I don't have to go searching for it, all right? If you are in Google Classroom, let's go to Google Classroom. I don't have a student account, so it's hard for me to emulate exactly what you do, but it's pretty close. So go to Google Classroom, classwork page. If I create a project and it's an assignment and I want to add something, you'll have these 2 buttons, add or create, when you're going to turn in an assignment. Click add. It is a link, so then I can paste it in there. And the way you paste, by the way, is Control V. And that's because Control P is print. So they couldn't use P, so they gave it V. Once you add the link, click add link, and then the link will be right in your project, and I'll be able to get it right from there. So I'm going to delete that. I don't really need that assignment for now, but you get the idea. So let's get that done, and I will see you and talk to you during the week. All right, have a great day.